Hey everyone, welcome to Tint Wisdom number 87 with Vernon Ball from the Tint Factory in Billings, Montana. Vernon, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. So I wonder how many people wondered if Montana is the Antarctic and we actually tint stuff up here.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we have to talk about. Is obviously you're in a colder region, you're in a very northwestern part of the country, and like you said, the weather there. So that's obviously not an issue.
No, it's not an issue. I mean, we might slow down a little, be a little more seasonal, but we still keep pretty steady.
And do you do only flat glass, or do you do automotive as well?
No, automotive's about 50% and then flat glass.
So come winter time or the very cold times, what do you see? Do they both drop off equally, or does one drop off more than another?
Probably equally, I would guess. I never paid attention to that one, but yeah, kind of the same, you know, just people don't know we can tint houses in the summer and the winter, but it's that winter solstice we actually pick up a little bit when we shift because the angle of the sun, you know.
Got it.
Yeah.
So why don't we rewind a bit and just catch everybody up, anybody who doesn't know you, um, how you got into the industry, how long you've been in the industry, and then now you're um, operating a shop in Billings for how long, and so on.
Okay. Well, I started tinting in May of '86 and kind of was on my own. I trained with an auto trim design out of Missoula, and we were trying to work a partnership there. That didn't work. I merged with Auto Trim in Billings and started their tint program. And January 1st of 1988, I went on my own. So I've been doing it quite a while. I was at a trade show locally, and some guy had a questionnaire if you needed your house tinted, RV, car tinted. And I'm like, hey, that would be fun. I didn't know anything about it. I thought it'd be a cool hobby. And here I am all these years later, 10 windows.
Yeah. So what do you think kept you in this industry for 32 to 34 years, 32 years on your own? Like, what just glued you into this industry? Because, that's the better part of your working career.
Well, because I never mastered it 100%. There's always challenges. There's always that integration of new ideas, and doing tinning was always a challenge. It didn't matter how long I've been doing it. I'd still have tough days. And, you know, it's an awesome thing because I had done cleaning like commercial buildings, and then I did construction, and, you get done framing a wall and nobody says anything. And every day, multiple times a day, people are like, man, that's great. Thank you. And that act, that pat on the back just fed the whole thing. It was awesome.
Right. Making somebody happy. So it's doing something that somebody appreciates. And,
Yeah.
like you said, it's not easy. So because it's not easy, you're rewarded with satisfaction from getting that job done. If it was easy, then
Right.
it sucks.
Yep.
It's boring
And then
after a while.
every night you clean the same thing, and there was no progress. There was no challenge. It was kind of not fulfilling at all.
Are there any major, like, milestones or like challenges that you in the past had that you kind of overcame that stand out to you?
Um, no, I did lots of mistakes. I was like typical in this industry. Um, when it started out in the 1980s, to tin a car here was $280, and I got fast, and I took it to 120 because I thought, let's do Walmart mentality,
Mm.
and we are just back up to $300 for a car, and that's over this many years, 30 some years. So I went through the thought I was really good, and I pissed some manufacturers off because I would step on their toes and, oh, you don't know how to do this, and that growth period. And um,
Mm.
so but I've done some really got I've even though I'm in Montana, I've done a job in Minneapolis at the Federal Reserve. I did a job in San Ramon, California for Steve Clark down there, and got to met some great people, and you know,
Mhm.
was
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned mistakes along the way. Like if anybody who's not making mistakes is doing nothing, because that's just part of
well,
right
but it's
how you
but
start.
it's not mistakes. One thing that I notice among most of us tinners is we think we're really good business people, and what we are is we're fortunate to have a really cost per effective thing, and so we don't pay a lot, so we can make a lot of mistakes because we charge more. We get into other things. I watch so many tinners, they'll take on another trade or they'll do this and that, and I've always told them tinning is your wife, and all the other things you get into is your mistress, and it's exciting. But tinning is what paid for all of our other ventures, and you know, if we wanted to get rich, we'd just tint windows. That's all we would do. We wouldn't try all these little channels and do this or that. Um, and I have to go back a little bit that I have a pet peeve of tinter's math. I have tinters that say, "Oh, I've tinted as long as you," and I'm like, "No, no. I started full time May of 1986, and I have done it full time. I have guys that, oh yeah, I've done as long as you, and it's like, well, for 5 years you sold Herbalife, or 5 years you did Neon. Well, I never went a month without at least tinting one car, or well, you would have been 12. Would you look at tint one time? So mine is 100% full time into it, and it was awesome because I got to meet guys that had been tinting since the 70s, and I thought, wow, I'll never get to that level, and to see how much we progressed is in trade is amazing. I still don't understand the best mentality of, this guy's the best or that guy's the best.
Right.
I really, it's one of my, I think it's one of the sad things about our business is that pride mentality. I also do wraps, and in that category, people are like, man, look how good that guy is. And you get shamed if you talk about how fast or, how good you are. And, there's always enough business to go around, even in our
Right.
community. Why worry if you're the best? Why not get along? Why not be above boards about what you're doing? I mean, that's how we've raised prices and got a healthy community. And then when there is a problem, instead of your competitor going, oh, yeah, they just did a bad job, or somebody coming to me about my competitor, I just tell them, I want loyalty. I don't want price shoppers. I don't want somebody that's, let me fix my problem. And I would hope you'd go back and have them fix their problem. And there's so much more growth out of that. I mean, that's what I appreciate about what you do is the guys, I can't even think of their name now, but, they share stuff and on the different forums and they build each other up. And we're finally getting to where we're recognized as a profession, because before we never were.
Yeah.
You go to a bank, they're like, oh, you're just a tinner, it's a phase, you're going to outgrow it. And I always thought I'd have to get a job eventually. And I faked it long enough in this. I never had to get a job, but one thing, like when Huber Optic came along, that's one thing they realized is most of us tinners knew everything about tin because we're knowledge junkies. We like knowing all that, but we weren't good at business.
Right.
I mean, we didn't have the mentorships. We didn't have, the marketing people come in and talk to us and show us how to. Where most of us are, we wear every hat instead of going, this. I'm really good at this, and if I can do what I'm the best at and find the person that's the best at the other, then it works really well.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're hiring, not you specifically, but like people say, how much should I pay somebody for that position? And you really like, I feel like the mentality should be try to find the best person you can possibly find for the job and then try to pay them what's going to make them happy that works for your business and works for their life. But like, it's not about trying to find somebody cheaper because like you can't the most valuable thing is somebody who's going to do a great job at your business in any position that they're in. It can pay you off in droves.
How many tenders? Yeah, how many tenders do you know that brag how they buy a Harbor Freight heat gun and use it commercially and then go trade it in and they cut corners and they're cheap, but then they want to be paid top dollar. And I always wanted to make enough money that I could afford to pay a trade, go and have my oil changed. I can change my own oil, but if I'm doing it, what trade am I not benefiting, you know?
Right.
And you look at that, we undervalue what other trades bring or what other, you know, businesses. You look at guys that tint, you know, it's like, well, why are you charging what you charge? And really when I started, the manufacturer or the distributor's like, oh, it only costs you $25 a tin a car. That's the biggest lie ever. I mean, when you figure overhead and all that, and then that's what happens is we all share it with our guys that we train or hang out with that become tinners, and then we tell them all, oh, it doesn't cost anything. And that's really, I think, one of the benefits of, say, having a plotter, and and you have somebody come in that has a plotter, and then they go, oh, there's an investment, and they see the value in that. They go, well, I can't just go out and start my own business.
Mhm. Right. Right. You're putting things in place that not only help your company but also set more of a barrier to entry to your own staff. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, as long as I've been doing this, everybody told me businesses like, well, if you're the only one that can do it, then your business has no value if you resell
Right.
it. And so it's like, okay, so then you learn to manage and you learn to not control everything and let other people do stuff so your business can run with you, you know. But in doing so, you're going to have to pay. And I don't, I think we get lost in paying for loyalty over paying for talent. In that if it's, you know, you pay somebody, you think, well, I'm paying them enough, they're going to always be loyal to me, and that's the first person that'll leave you. Whereas if you're paying for talent and you learn, like with me, I train a lot of guys, so I'm fortunate I can train my own guys, but I make sure that you don't pay them too much too soon, because it's like winning the lottery. They don't know how to handle it. So you help them. You're not just teaching them intent, but you help them manage money. You help them learn all the aspects of being responsible financially, even though I am not, but I know how to teach it because I am a parent.
Mhm.
But anyways, it's there's a lot that goes along with that, and then
Well,
you have the respect.
and when you're taking that route, you're investing in them, and I think people recognize that, and then they appreciate that, and they that's what builds that loyalty. I always think about when people say like, I can't find any good help. There's no good help, and I think about it like a single person saying there's no good men out there or there's no good women out there. It's you know, if you said, well, what happened in your past relationships? Most likely everyone's going to say, well, and they're going to talk about what the other person did wrong. But realistically, it goes both ways, and people quit jobs and people fire staff. So it goes both ways. And it's definitely important to be honest with yourself and know like why was that person not loyal to you? Because sometimes it just they didn't feel it was you were worth being loyal to, or why aren't they investing effort into the business? Maybe they just don't recognize that it's worth investing into.
But but if you take that, and that's a big thing, is just like in a relationship where you go, well, they weren't right. I always train people because I've had enough of them leave me that I learned that if I trained them right, they eventually would want more because they would see the value. And I'm okay with helping with that growth and watching them move on, whether it's a competitor or whether it's on to something. I had a young guy that he became an electrician, you know, and like, that's awesome. I mean, he was a good hand. I knew why his employer loves him. But instead of me taking it personal, going, well, I put all this into him, I mean, it's the ebb and flow of business. You're going to do that. Look how many things we'll invest in new materials or try different stuff. May not work out, but you don't hold a grudge as long against the bad, what failed, as you might with employees going south. And if you encourage that entrepreneurship, that might be the next person that takes over your business, that buys you out, or, that has that fresh idea that that's one thing after 35 years, I'm kind of probably stuck in a rut. You get a new guy with new marketing, especially with social media or that end of it that has an advantage that can push it to the next level and be ready for that and celebrate it with them. It makes you less bitter towards your next
Yeah.
thing, so it's a growth.
How many years do you see in the future of you being, you think, having a tin shop?
Um, I've probably got another, I'm 55, so probably 7 to 10 years, but I don't want to be actively tinting, but the thing is, when you tint that long, your guys think you lost it. So you still have to go out and work with the boys and convince them you might know a thing or two.
Yeah. So has that's something I take it you're kind of actively working on is growing a staff and having people. It sounds like you have people that um, can do just about what you can do with a little less
Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yep, we do so many things that I'm fortunate because people want to work for me because we have a fun environment, but I'm a terrible boss because I treat them too good and, give them perks that they probably wouldn't get anywhere else. But that's my nature. But, um, I've always hoped. I have three daughters. I hoped one of them would take it over, and they didn't see the value in it. Maybe eventually my oldest one might come back and operate it because, I mean, I don't want to see it close. I want to see it grow on and say, yeah, I was part of it.
And
So,
got it. So, what are some of the most important things you want to accomplish moving forward? Would you say in that in this like the those benchmarks, those immediate goals that you kind of like? I got to get this done.
well, as silly as this sounds, maybe it doesn't, but a lot of people, like when I've gone to Huber Optic conventions, a lot of people know me. I teach. Um, I've always wanted to be able to pass my knowledge on. That's one reason at the opportunity of coming on and talking with you is, how do we save some of these up and comings from the same mistakes that I've made or other older tinners? Because the problem I have with the tinners that I always knew that were in the 70s, if they're still tinning at my age, they have a drug or alcohol problem. And, it's sad because they really didn't have someone there to guide them. And we have enough knowledge base now with the different guys that you've had on, for example, and different guys in the industry that I'd love to be able to step in and go out and meet tinners, kind of like Carol at Veloce, go out and pass that knowledge on and represent a manufacturer, for example, or just go in as some sort of a mentor. I'm like I say, I'm fortunate because I do train tinners, but to have that knowledge and show the strength of what's there, because a lot of us always figured once factory tint came in, we would become obsolete,
Right.
and it isn't. The dynamics changed. We used to always do cars in the 80s, very few pickups because people with pickups, they didn't spend money. They were work vehicles. Now it's just the opposite. So it's nice to do that, show people within a community, of competitors that you all can raise your price to a healthy, livable wage to where it's sustained and show where we can be professional. So instead of just going out and saying it's this much to tint your house, we break it down so we know how much was labor, we know how much was material. So and look at it, say like a body shop estimate or a mechanic's estimate. The more we can break it down, the more we actually know what our costs are. Instead of just going, I had $500 of material, I just made this much money. You know,
Right.
and teach the math from the inside out. And I think we would have more guys instead of living large and then being broke, they would
Mhm.
be able to thrive and have that retirement and have something to where our trade is recognized as a profession, because it really isn't.
So biggest
It's
problem.
much better than
Go ahead. Say again.
no, it's better than it used to be as far as where we are as a profession, but we still have a lot of the guys that bring the profession down, with that mentality, I'm the best and I know everything, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So biggest problem in the industry right now, if I think, and not problem, but like biggest thing I feel is being posted about is people trying to hire, people trying to find good help, and feeling like there's not necessarily enough good help out there, or they're not maybe the best at training, and then there's some schools out there, and then there's other people coming in saying, I want to learn how to tint. And people are saying, check out YouTube. You can learn some things on YouTube, but some things you need to be in person, and so on and so forth. And then, you're saying how something you'd love to do is be able to help teach people all that you know and all that you've learned. And there's other people who echo that same sentiment of wanting to pass along that 30 and 40 years experience and feeling like there could be like lost information, like lost wisdom as well as techniques and so on. So it feels like, you know, your like what you're saying could be the beginnings of a major shift in the industry for like growth in the sense like you're, you know, potentially taking all that knowledge, the training, and so on, and seeding it into the younger businesses. And if you pile that in with the IWFA, and you know, um, you don't really hear too much about the IWFA, and I know they had a big part in like the legal side of things and lobbying in states and making sure tint wasn't illegal and so on, which is huge. Possibly a refresh for that IWFA would be, I'd say, refreshing that legal aspect of it because I think that's super valuable, but also focusing on setting up like training by IWFA certified trainers that can be paid to go around and do that sort of thing. And it would potentially bring some sort of uniformity and maybe more resources. What do you think?
Well, I think the problem where I always struggled with IWFA was I've already been doing it so many years. Why would I have to have a certification when
You
I'm
would.
probably better than I? No, I understand that.
Yeah, I
But I'm
mean, you
saying
wouldn't
that,
necessarily, I guess. In my mind, I feel like if I'm a tinter and I'm you know I'm just saying if and I go I want to go ahead and train people, I may make my own class. I may make it available on my Facebook or make a website and say I'm doing tint training. I may go to the manufacturer and say if you know anybody who needs training. But I feel like an organization like the IWFA could bring like a uniform standard to how what information's kind of how it's relayed, like that, you know, that middleman, I guess. But you certainly don't
right.
need it, you
Well,
know.
no. Listen to where I was going, though.
Go ahead.
I'm saying back in the 80s, 90s, when it was strong, I discounted the value of it because I already knew what I knew. Whereas when we started doing dealer meetings, better dealer meetings than just the simple distributor, when we started understanding networking, I think you're right that now IWFA stands different because the ones that are the masters, there's so many that aren't yet. And so they IWFA could help us with marketing, going to job fairs and going, hey, you're looking at going to college, you're looking at some trade, why not consider us? And the biggest problem I've always had with manufacturers is window manufacturers are like paint manufacturers. They said, here's a bucket of paint, you guys go do what you do with it. And it might seem funny to guys that haven't heard this, but when lifetime warranties came out, 3M says, oh, we're not going to have a lifetime warranty. And so the other manufacturers said, we're going to. And then 3M came back and said, you know, we're going to have a lifetime warranty. Well, same as when we started heat shrinking. Some manufacturers said, if you heat shrink our stuff, we're not going to warranty it. And then once it got accepted, then that manufacturers, they came back and said, yeah, we will. They didn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing, that point of that is when we gave so much power to the manufacturers that, you know, like when they come in and set up a dealer in your area or a car lot in your area, we just kowtowed to them and said, oh, I guess I can't do anything. Well, now we're starting to see like the no brand come in and join the tint club or different things where, because we're becoming more accepted as a profession, that if we took that knowledge to IWFA now and to the manufacturers, I think it's a solid time to grow that seed that wasn't able to it back in when we started in the 80s or in the 90s, you know. So I think it's strong because it's such a strong trade. There's so much work out there business wise that you could pick up. And if you show your guys how to retain your workers so they're not constantly looking, and in this world of ADD and gaming, one thing we have going for us is we're constantly moving. We're not sitting at a desk being bored. You know, you might do, I'm fortunate because in a smaller market, we do all of it, you know, where that keeps a guy that has ADD actively engaged, you know, and it doesn't get boring or repetitive even 30 years later, you know. So if we could have the IWFA as a voice box for that, I think it would, I think you made a really good point. I think they have a time to kind of grow again and use the roots that are there and make this more solid.
So, on a similar but different topic, what do you think's like? There's there's not. You see tin companies. I feel like now more than ever, they're becoming bigger and bigger. They've become more professional. You see more uniforms, more wrapped vehicles, and people adopting business practices for their tin shop. No longer just slang and film. It's how can I help you? My pleasure.
Right.
But there's still kind of, it feels like a ceiling. It's kind of like maybe in automotive, maybe a 1.5 to 3 million ceiling. In flat glass, you might see a lot of companies now in the 2 to 5 million range, and then a handful between 5 and 10 million. But you don't see like nationwide domination. You don't see that from a manufacturer level. You don't see that from a tint company. You kind of see the same thing in both, where you can have different pockets and different businesses excelling very well with any type of film in any type of demographic. It could be Los Angeles. It can be a small town, and you'll get the same sort of like we're killing it over here. What do you think some of these challenges that like what has kept that from becoming a national thing, a domination thing?
Well, I believe if you take an actor, for example, take Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is very talented, but until he found a management person to manage his talent, he didn't thrive. Once he started thriving, he thought it was his talent and lost track of the management. So us guys that do everything
Mm-hmm.
from, sweep the floor and all that, when we don't get out of our own way and find someone that says, look, you're talented, you could turn $1, you could sell ice to Eskimos, you could do whatever. It's like, okay, but we don't go out and employ within our business somebody that does the social media. We might hire an SEO company, but we're really just kind of shotgunning it
That's
for getting an approach rather than that. And one thing that deals with that is one of my notes I wrote is if you have your spouse working for you, and that's what we don't have a lot of, is they go out and earn a living somewhere else while we're running your business,
mm-hmm.
and bring them into the business to help us, and we don't pay them.
Right.
And, because we commingle our funds and it just goes in. Well, you'll find if you pay your people, so your spouse comes in, she sees the value in what you're paying her. But more than that is then you see a value in that spot. Most tinners go, well, I understand if the tinner's out there tinning for me, it's 30% or I pay him his wages. I see the dollar he brings me. And we don't value over here the people that don't bring the active dollar in. But that's a real problem. The same way as when we pay ourselves, it's the guys that pay themselves as they go. You can tell because they have really nice toys and then they don't have any toys, and they have really nice toys and then they don't. It's that ebb and flow. So if you get somebody in there that says, look, you don't get to touch the money. I'm the CFO and you're the CEO, but you get managed. That's the mentality that I think that really keeps us down.
I think that's extremely well said and on point. You know, just giving your spouse more than often. Now, I mean, it's just usually a wife, but if it's a husband, it's a reverse way, whatever scenario it is. Just giving them access a lot of times to be able to help before you know it. They're helping and they're the biggest help. And like you said, you recognize that as a position and you start to see how that is a position. And you're what you said about SEO and marketing and so on, like you're so spot on. When, getting customers in the door is a huge part of the business. It just is. And you can get those customers in the door by being in business for 100 years or by doing a great job and getting reviews and so on. But there's other methods, and it does help when you have somebody that's working towards that. And like you said, shotgunning it for $250 a month or $350 a month to a company that doesn't give any cares about your company. They're just trying to get $250 a month is crazy. It's just crazy. So I think super spot on.
Well, it's the same way. If you're in a business and you want your kid to get into it, don't teach him the hard labor part of the business.
Right.
Teach him right. Think of how many of the kids are are really good at setting up your VCR, or well,
Hmm.
nobody knows what VCR is, but your new phone.
Yeah.
They come in and manage your social media for you.
Right.
They're always putting you out there,
Right.
and it's something again you have. It's a have to let go of and say, I don't know anything about that, and that's okay. You go do it and see the results. But again, by paying a paycheck, it makes you see the value in what you're paying out, because that's hard,
Mhm.
to when you just write 250, it's like, oh, that isn't that much. But like you said, what do you get? Well, when you have somebody that you're actually paying a wage to, then they can show you how they're earning it, and it's major. But it's that parlaying it into each role instead of you doing every role. And that's, you look at Steve Clark, out of California. I think, he is innovative. He's very successful. Took over his dad's successful business, but grew it. He just bought a couple other businesses, but he isn't trying to run them all. He has his people run them. I can't think of the guy in Chicago that has his huge company, but that's what he did. He tried to sneak out and set up little companies, not sneak out, but venture out and do that. The problem that came in is, and it's like, okay, how do we find tinners? But in that case, some of them didn't value the trade of a tinner. They're like, oh, you can find anybody to tin. And you watch that manufacturer. One job I did in Minneapolis, the manufacturer says, well, we can get anybody to tin. We just need to go find a commercial salesperson, get him set up in tinning, and he can go find the work. Well, when either side doesn't recognize the talent of it, then it's going to always limp along,
Yeah.
and you have to have them equal.
Yep. Yeah. Spot on. I mean, I could just only could say I 100% agree. Um, chopping down all the jobs and putting a value and how much time it takes you and what you get from it, and separating all those jobs, and then now trying to see who's going to do what and how much am I doing and where do I actually make the money from doing these things and so on. That's a way that you can realistically grow a business. And like you said, not commingling funds. If you're installing tint, you should. That's an installer pay. You did it. That money's yours, but not all the money that left over is yours, because some of that money's
Right.
earmarked for marketing. You just didn't earmark it for marketing, but it's actually marketing money, and so on and so forth.
Yep. But it's weird because it's common everywhere I've been. You watch the guys that are struggling. I've been one of them, still probably one of them, because I hold on to so much that I do. But I can look back in retrospect and say, look, you think you have all this, adjust it a little bit. You don't need to turn around and go the other direction. You just change little things, and you'll get over the obstacle that you didn't know was in front of you. Which, if you're the obstacle, who's going to admit that? And if you think you're the best, why would you need to improve?
Right.
You know. So I watch that ego, and it's so amazing in our industry how much ego there is at our tint competitions. I think it would be. I always said it. If when I my first dealer meeting I ever went to, I was tinning 70 cars a day in my shop, and I went to
How many?
7 and 8.
Oh, seven
I
to
could
eight. Okay.
70 cars a day by myself. No, but the difference was I met shops that did that, but they had a secretary, they had somebody doing sales. I did it all. So then I finally went to a half the United States dealer meeting, and I met people in Texas that were at my same level. And like, man, this is awesome. And we had the talent. There was so much innovation that came in the 90s, from, instead of cutting along defrosters to heat shrinking and shaping, and that the new guys take for granted. If they ever had a real challenge, they'd be stuck. But, you look at that and you go, now it's like, if we could just grasp where to go next and how to get there, and get that ego out of the way, and say, look, I don't care how many cars you can do. How much money do you have in the bank at the end of the year? You know, how much you might have a nice house, you might have a nice whatever, but how much money? Jeremy Shapiro, I always look at him. There's a guy that we all are energizers of money. So I don't know how we do what we do in a day. But instead of bragging, instead of seeing all that he does work wise, I want to know where he's at financial. Help me grow to that level, but where's my nest egg? And My retirement is selling my business. My retirement is assets that I've acquired. How could I help the next upcoming generation to have a savings account besides for a rainy day, for COVID, or what the next thing is? How do we get there
Yeah.
and not have the ups and the downs?
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% well said. It's not about like there's definitely great to be busy, but like ultimately it's at the end of the day it's about making customers happy. It's about all those things. But something that's super important is what is your net profit. So it's not a matter of saying like I did so many cars or I sell this as the best film or I'm the best tinter. I mean, you want all those things, but at the end of the day, what is your net profit? How many hours are you working? What are you doing? And I feel like, the different steps that sometimes maybe people don't necessarily recognize that are involved in being a business owner. And like you see people get kind of offended sometimes when people point it out, but there's nothing wrong with it working for a company. There's zero wrong with that. If you just want to be an exceptional tinner and you don't want to run the whole business, then don't own your own business. Just do tinting for somebody. Then you could say, well, I want to own my own business. And you've given yourself a business to work for. You're your own boss. You have your own hours, your own days. You get to make the decisions. Then maybe you add staff and you have help. So it's you plus some people. And then eventually the hardest like Jenga move to make is pulling yourself out of there, even if it's just for a day, even if it's just for a week, and everything still operates and so on and so forth. And those are like the different levels. There's not like a right or wrong, but like ultimately the most valuable one there is the last step, where if you're out of the game and you don't actually have to operate it, that became now the most valuable place. And it's different ball game than the first step. Like the first step where you're just tinting by yourself is worth basically nothing. It's worth your phone number and your website. The other one's worth potentially unlimited number because it's an investment of money in for something that runs itself. But you don't see that. It's I don't know even of a company that I could say like, hey, that company really operates without too much of the owner's effort. Though I'm sure there are some companies out there. How would I know about them?
Because I've worked for Steve Clark, I've watched him have successful installations going on in multiple areas at the same time. He's traveling around and doing his thing. And what he's celebrating, what I watch him, and it's just because I know him, I'll refer to him, is I watch the time he spends with his family, and I watch so many of his kinners that, I'm working 6 days a week, I'm working 7 days a week. Well, we know what kind of money's there. Why are we working so much? Or we start getting busy and we keep like I did, where it's like, oh, I'm going to be cheap and I'm going to do so much work. Well, I learned that you just raise the price until you're as busy as you want to be, and if you're working Saturdays, raise your price so you don't have to. And, the same as paying your spouse to be there, see the value in being home. Because if you don't see the value in being home, because I can't take vacation, I'm not making $1. Well, why didn't you put money aside for that? I can't do this because, I can't go to my kid's game. Well, why are you in this business? My workers, like last year, he had a chance to go to, he always takes tons of vacation, but he had a chance to go to Disney World. That was a plan. Well, then his dad got to go hunting in Alaska. He's like, hey, I was invited. I'm like, go,
Yeah.
that's what you're working for,
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we can help them understand about that, let's start bragging about working 4-day weeks and, and bragging about our accomplishments, not just financially, but health wise, family wise. It will change the whole dynamics of what this industry is.
Yeah. Yeah. You need your own Facebook live stream, man. Like you're 100%, 1,000% right. You neglect your family, you're not going to be happy. It doesn't work very long. You neglect your body, you won't feel good. You won't be happy. You miss everything there is out in life while you're working. It doesn't work out long term. You're 100%, 1,000,000% right. You can do it cheaper, or you could charge more.
5 years old, and you realize, man, I didn't put anything back in the tank way back here, and you play catch up in so many spots. And if we could do, like you said, is show the dynamics of take a plumbing company, take a chiropractic office, and start mentoring after non-trades so we can mirror our images after that. You'll have people come in and say, I want to be part of that. You won't be the guy out there tinning because you realize you got a guy that can do that. You pay him a fair wage, but in order to do that, you got to pay a fair price. And you learn not to be embarrassed by saying, you know what, I'm not going to work after 5, or I'm not working Saturdays. You say, no, I've put it in such a way in my plan that this is the hours I'm working, this is what I'm doing, and put that aside, and we won't have the broken family. We won't have the spouses that are neglected because we're not there.
Yeah. And, like you said about your employee that had the opportunity with his father, like, if you let your staff, if you have an open, like, hey, if you have something that you have to do, let us know in advance and go do it, then like it breeds that environment where like when that happens, somebody else in the company doesn't mind picking up the slack or working the extra hours because they know this is what it's about. But like if anybody thinks that they can just squeeze more juice out of the orange endlessly, then people run away because they feel they want to enjoy their life the same way you want to enjoy your life. Like it goes both ways. So I mean that's awesome. Awesome that you do that.
Well, it's why I have people that want to work for me, because the environment says it's a team, and I'm no more valuable than they are. I'll go out there and sling tint. I will clean the floor, but I also don't want to be the one doing that at the end of the day, because if I'm doing it, I'm only can make as much as that guy wages. So the same way, but I want my guy that's in that position to know he's not there. He's going to step up the next one, and
Right.
we're going to keep passing it on. And if so be it, at the end of that, he's learned enough to go on his own, then I want him to know that he can call me and say, "Hey, Vern, I'm starting my own business. I'll help him." Because it's not a threat. It's a dynamic, and it's
Right.
a way I want. That's my whole way I want to be. I don't feel so proud that I'm the best and they're stealing from me. It's knowledge,
Yeah.
and if they grew from it, then I've succeeded. No different than if they were my child.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you have that sort of internal promotion, you're always having an example. Everybody's always looking at the example that's being set. If you try to just insert somebody into a position and tell them how they're supposed to do it, they're missing that whole example portion of it, which is what keeps somebody sweeping floors with 110% effort because they see what's next and so on and so forth.
It's a whole culture that you breed and you show, because it's what you do. You take care of it. We know if we take care of our people, well, they'll take care of us. Well, that's not always true. And if they don't, we look at our self introspect and go, what didn't I do? Or maybe I did it right. Like I said, they've left the nest, they've moved on. Um, I told my guy, I want you to buy a new house. I want you to have the nice things. And, I've neglected myself to get my guys that, but they also know that it's there, but I see it in return when I'm like, guys, I need a day off. Go, we got this,
Right.
you know? So it's a culture that really needs to be worked on within our industry, I think, is to have that. And it comes from not thinking you're the best. It comes from the humility of saying, at the end of the day, I put plastic on windows. You know, what's the award? Even if I'm the best, what do I get? A ribbon? I don't know.
And what is
You know,
you got to start with what is the best. First of all, what is the best as a window film installer? Is it the person who does the
no,
neatest job? Is it
you got to go back to what the insecurity is
right?
that says you have to be the best, because it's really driven internally.
Right.
I had a guy come in my shop from another state, and he's telling me how he wins competition, how he's the fastest, and never once did he ask me how long I've been in business. Never once did he ask me about my thing. And I had two Toyota Camrys come in, and this is like 93, 94. And so I said, well, you're the best. Show me. Well, it took him an hour and 28 minutes to tint that car. That was good. It was a good time, right? I told him to sit down and shut up. Now, when I'm showing off, I'm good. I did in 28 minutes. That was hand cutting. That was prepping everything. And he's like, well, how come you don't compete? I said, I go to competitions to steal your ideas, because I don't need to know everything you do, but I'm going to pick up little things. But in them competitions, we'll go back to that. If they really had a real competition, you have 10 minutes to do that window, which seems like forever. Hand them a phone, and they have to answer two phone calls. Then they have to deal with some customers going to ask the dumb questions. Then they get to tint that window in 10 minutes. Now that's a real competition.
I like it. It's more like a CrossFit competition because you have like the
It
different.
is. Exactly.
Yeah.
How good are you? You're just a mushroom. You're sitting back in there and you're just installing film. Now you have like Mike Sanchez, guy runs every aspect of his business. He could definitely do that. You have some of these guys that are punks that, I'm back in here. Oh, I did so many cars a day. No, do that many cars a day, answer the phone, get interrupted and get annoyed. And then tell me, so what if you're the best,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So, so that's my thing is pay your spouses really well.
Yeah.
And, you know, don't get into the next best thing. Don't try to go, oh, it's slow in the winter. I'm going to find something to do and spend money you don't have to find out later you probably just should have tinted windows. And don't, I tell everybody all the time, I'm one of the best salesmen there is. I can sell myself on any idea, so we convince ourselves, oh, yeah, this is the latest, greatest trend. And we just spent money we didn't have.
And
I
time,
promise
time, money,
if you
effort.
turn that early on, you will be a solid tinner and you'll have a thriving business. Don't get into every new thing. Don't look at the mistress that's there and then go back to your wife and go, that tinning paid all my bills.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at the next shiny business thinking that is the add-on you need, you're missing something that's fundamentally wrong with your business because, um, like you said, just tintings you should be overly successful with that. Don't think that adding ceramic coating is going to be that magic ingredient. With that said, one thing I think everybody should do, and I try to bring it up on here, is how do you know how much money you make? Like knowing how much money you make in everything you do. How much time does it take? What's your net for that specific product? So that when I'm trying to sell this product, it's because I'm going to make this amount of money, not I just think it's better. It's just another thing I can sell. You know?
Well, but why are you selling something more? What, like, what's driving you to look at the next best thing? Because it's not dollars, nose to the grindstone. If you're not making enough in windows, raise your prices.
So
And go ahead.
so there's that business model, and there's definitely a customer base of like, I want to get PPF done, I want to get ceramic coating, I want to get my windows tinted, and I want to do it all in one place. There's the idea that hey, if I can sell a $600 tint job and make $350 profit on that, I could also sell PPF to the same person and make another 1,500 to 2,000. I can also sell them ceramic coating and so on. So maybe I'm going to have less volume of vehicles. I'm just going to have a higher ticket amount.
You can't do it by yourself.
No, you definitely can't do it by. Well, you could, but
Well, no, you cannot.
I
If you're
mean,
going to make the optimum dollar,
uh,
then you're going to find your tinter that's really good,
for
and that
sure.
guy's going. And then you find your paint protection. Yes, there's me. I do it all. I do wraps,
I agree.
print, I do freaking crazy stuff. But if you're the guy doing it all, you're going to run in circles because you're not going to have enough time in a day.
Of course.
So if you have that next add-on and it's really a value, then bring the person in to do it to add the
I
value
agree 100%.
because you have making money instead of one.
You're gonna if
But,
if you try to take it
if
all on yourself, you're like digging yourself into the sand, and eventually you're stuck in the sand because you've done too much. You 100% agree. But
and what's going to suffer? What's going to suffer with your environment if you're, doing ceramic coating and you're buffing a car, then now you're not only you change your clean environment and that. So your space needs to do that. When you take on more overhead, it's going to cost you more. And if you don't understand the cost, and it's paying somebody to do it, whether you're paying yourself or hiring someone, the paycheck's still there. So you watch these guys that do everything, they're not making a ton of money in every area. They're just not.
right,
But when you watch, like you said, how many of them come in and dominate? We've watched manufacturers try to franchise. We watch different companies come in and do it. I have a competitor that you never heard a bad word about him. I had I had somebody come in today that said, look, my customer wants this product. They will not go to company X. That blew my mind because they're one of the best. What did they do? Where did they fail? Well, they grew so exponentially. They have the look. They look the part. But I can tell you, for every 100,000 more my business makes, I take less than 10,000 of it home. So what benefit is there to do that extra 100,000 to really know the cost? Why am I not? If I'm hiring another guy and bringing on another product, and you have that game to play, what are you really making more?
Right. You have to know. You have to
Yep.
sit down.
But most people look at that. They're going, I made another 100,000 this year. No, what did you take home?
Right.
What did it really cost you? And in that cost, like we discussed, what did it cost your family?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's, if it all bails back to that, is what, you know, family first. And if you have the family first, the family will be included, you and me as a family. It'll include that family, because think of how many times you've met another tinner or another shop owner. How much time did you get to go and just say, go sit on the lake and drink beer? Usually you're flying down going, look, I'm on a layover or I'm just passing through and it was great to see you. Where's the value in that? When if it really meant that to you, you just spent a weekend or a week hanging out with your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 100% spot on. I agree. Who do you think?
Your nickel's worth out of me.
Yeah, you said this. I knew before we were going live. We said this was going to be an easy one, so you made it easy. Um, Manufacturer wise, who comes to your mind when you think, if I say, wow, they're manufacturer to keep an eye on, they're looking good. Who comes to your mind?
A manufacturer, I don't feel qualified to speak to that 100% because there's manufacturers that obviously I don't know. I can tell you my shining star is Harry Ramon Veloce. When I met him with the other company, his vision and dream, I watched him build it. And they promised us a whole bunch of stuff because imagine the depth of that guy. He gets to see all the inner workings of what's out there, not from the big company that, well, we can make anything, to going, hey, this exists and wade through it and say, this is why it's the best, or this is why it's worthy of his investment into it. I just stand in awe of him. And he's the most humble person that I know that shouldn't be humble. So I think from what he learned from the past company, Huber Optics, a great brand. So many others are Reeboxers. So it's really hard to know, what they're doing. But I don't see a lot of change in marketing from companies that have nothing but, a budget for, they got a ton of budget to market the way they should. They don't seem to be taking care of us in the trenches. Again, here's a bucket of paint. Go do what you do with it. We're the ones that figured out you could heat shrink. We're the ones that figured the limits we could take it to, and they really don't respect us.
And I can't figure out why. I ask you about that question about manufacturers because you've obviously seen decades. So you've seen people come to the peak of the mountain and then kind of go back down the mountain. Some maybe making promises and not fulfilling. I'm sure some are not even in your memory anymore that at one time were. So, when you have that broader perspective, you see it on a bigger scale than I do. And I just, for myself, I can't completely understand, like, but I have a theory. But when you take the bit, I go, who has the most money and the most resources? I go, the biggest companies. Now that might be wrong just right then and there. I may be just wrong by thinking the division of window film in those big companies have resources. Even so, the company might have money, but the division might not have necessarily that money.
Well, window tinners are the stepchild of the industry. When you look at why 3M stays in the tinning business, it's not for any reason except for it excels their adhesives. They get to test every adhesive there is. When you see Saint-Gobain or SolarGuard come in, you look at what their extrusion business makes them, and you're like, well, why are we here? Because it's an extrusion. But they don't take the time to see the driving force. But they carried it down. You know, they said it's only $25 to tin a car, so you're going to make all this money. They didn't see the value in what we're doing. That's why I mean, I have been screwed over by manufacturers going, you know, one came into my town and did a huge job. I found out about it, said, put me on it. It's a process I want to learn. I'll do it for free. Sorry. We had a guy that owed us money, so he gets it. I said, so if I don't pay my bill, you'll give me a job? You know, how does that make sense? You know, or I've done huge installs directly for, say, like 3M. And, you know, I'm on a job. I saved their bacon on the job. And at the end of the day, they said, well, if you don't fulfill your thing here, we're not going to pay you. And I'm like, well, that's just insane. They just don't value it. Like I said, it's a bucket of paint. Here you go. The only ones that are meet that totem pole is the same way as a painter. You think of a house painter of any sort. They're not driving fancy cars. They're not living in luxurious houses. It's because we're a labor, and they don't see how much we're connected to their success. Huber Optic came in and trained us a lot and educated us a lot. But at the end of the day, it seemed like once they made a certain amount of money, then it's like, yeah, it's okay, you know. And I wouldn't say they sold out, because they really brought, when they showed our market that people would pay for stuff dollar wise. Like with ceramic, it's set in a vault, and nobody will pay that kind of money.
Yeah.
And then they learned they would, so now everybody makes it. And they give stupid lifetime warranties, of which they should never have that on any product, you know, but they don't stand up for it. They just allow us to carry it and go, oh, we didn't have that problem. We don't have to back you. You go take care of it. And because most of us are good guys, we stand back and go, I guess I'll pay for it. I mean, I've made a living on it. I won't turn the warranty in.
Isn't that funny how that works out with window tint, where like anything else, like a TV, it might come with a 2-year warranty. You don't expect that warranty, you don't expect the TV to break in a year. You don't expect it to break in 3 years. It might have a 2-year warranty, but it's going to last 10, I hope. But like
Right.
window film, it's kind of the only thing where like it's just reversed.
It
It's like
is.
we're going to
It's
give you
crazy.
a forever warranty because we just assume you're never going to use it forever. And if
Right.
you do, you might have moved,
And
whatever. Yeah.
we get stuck holding the bag on the end. You know, it's no different than processing a warranty. Why in the heck would I be involved in the warranty process? You know, so the manufacturer, when I buy a Sony TV, I turn around, it goes bad. I don't call Walmart and say, hey, the TV went to crap. I call Sony. And then when it goes bad, I don't hate Walmart. I hate Sony, and I'll never buy another Sony TV. Where the manufacturer comes back to me and goes, hey, these windows broke. You got to cover this. And I'm like, well, first of all, maybe a bird flew in it, but I'm putting in the middle of, I've got to look out for my customer, but now I got to look out for my manufacturer. Don't give a rat's ass about me, you know? And so it's like, okay, what do I do? And if I don't stand behind my customer, then I get a bad name, you know, or vice versa. And it's insanity. I've never understood that. I've told them they should have a warranty line, make the customer fill out their own damn paperwork and turn it in. And then when they call me and go, oh, did you turn your paperwork? Do you have it? You know, that's where your warranty company is.
Yeah.
You know, it's a mentality that because one person does it, they all do it, and nobody will back down.
Yeah.
You know, you look at overseas films, like, it's got a 2-year warranty. And it's like, okay, well, where do you think we're buying our stuff from? Maybe quality control or what their standards they're building for is a little better, but still, you know. So I don't know. That's a funny one.
Yeah. It is. It is a tricky one there. When did that come about? The whole lifetime warranties.
See, now I feel like Noah. Oh, well, I remember back in the day when 3 years, it would have been mid 90s, early 90s is when we went. Because, like I said, about the time heat shrinking came along, and then they're like, oh, we won't warranty that. And then they started giving ridiculous warranties on the stupidest things. I mean, you think how much you change it, heat shrinking it, and then they don't give us. Well, that's the other crazy thing is they give us a product and we have to figure out what to mount it with, what mounting solution works. They just say, here you go. But you know, it's insane. You think they'd give us the whole ingredients and go, this is the way.
I would think that. I really would. I would think like that they'd have a very easy structured, like if I'm going to carry your film, all right, you have my logo. I'm going to get like the uniform. I'm going to get scripting. I'm going to get signage. I'm going to get paint color. I'm going to get like everything, and it's going to be kind of a now. What do I do? You know what I mean? Like I would think it's that way, and that's where I say like I go through this thought process a lot of times on Tint Wisdoms and on my own time, and I'm going like, all right, so a company like 3M, their window tinting portion, like you said, it's tiny bit. It's not okay. They might have the resources as a company, but not in that field. And then you go, well, who there is going? I want to conquer the window film world. Like, who actually has that fire versus going like, well, I'm happy with my job and I got to make sure I show an improvement, but I'm definitely not going to take a step off a cliff, hoping to go big and maybe I lose my career. Like, so in those bigger companies, while I think that should be who's doing it, I'm going, how would that come to be from those companies? Even so, to me, it makes sense. And
Well,
then
because
go ahead.
we're a component. You think about the Sony TV. We don't know who builds all their components. So Sony is the
Sure.
brand that comes out and says, "Here's the end product." That's the thing, is we're the end product. So that's why our manufacturers don't care. They just sell us a piece of thing and say, "Go, that's a cog in there. That's a chip that you need. Okay, here we provide that." And ultimately we're carrying their name. Plus, I mean, I'm responsible. I mean, I can tell you, like Interwest Distributing, we hit heads way back because I was a cocky young guy. They didn't value me. I'm like, they're not in my market, and I'm like, okay, now I'm grown up and I'm better. Now take me back, and they're like, nah. Well, same with our manufacturers. We're like, hey, we used to be cocky, and we used to, maybe we go use this brand and this brand and this brand, but now we're ready to settle down and use a brand. What will you do for us? And then all of a sudden they pull it from the market or they drop you from a program, and it's just random. I mean, I've got manufacturer here. I have 3.5 years of installs, and I can't even sell the product. So now that I'm needing to service it with replace windows or whatever, it's like, look, I used to carry it. Well, sorry, you're not in that program anymore. I'm like, well, you have nobody here. So how do I just get thrown to the curb? But there's just no value. So I guess our value comes from seeing our competitors and helping them succeed so that we succeed. So we are unified and saying, look, manufacturers, this is what we expect from you.
Yeah.
And because we don't have that solidarity, they kind of walk over us, ramshod, and just do what they do.
Well, that power shift is definitely changing currently, and we see that. I feel like it's very clear over the last maybe 7 to 10 years, a drastic shift in you can only carry one film too. All right, yeah, of course you carry multiple films. That I feel like has it's just become more and more clear. You see more and more businesses obviously branding themselves as a business, not branding the manufacturer all over their business and carrying multiple brand films. Like you see that shift, and like you said, it's going to be a matter of coming together as an industry, and then also there's that opportunity for probably a mid-level sized film company to come in and say we are going to do some of these things that we're talking about and probably some other things we haven't thought of and kind of set a new bar in the industry for now. Hey, if I'm a manufacturer, I'm going to get chipped away at by that company until and I think a relatable example would be like Amazon. Amazon came in and said, we're going to ship everything in 1 to 2 days and you're going to get a refund really easily if you don't want it. And other companies said, if they're going to survive online, they better offer fast shipping. It probably should be free and they better make it easy to return it. And, they set that bar. The shoe company did that, what was it? Shoe company did that like 10, 15 years ago online. It starts with a Z. And
Oh, Zappos.
Zappos did that. They started right away, free shipping, and you can ship it back to us. And I feel like that revolutionized buying shoes on the internet. Something most people would say, you're not going to buy shoes on the internet. That would be weird. You have to try them on. Now there's mattresses coming to your bed to try for 30 days, and you can ship it back for free. And I think that level of changing the game is just a matter of time, and it's an opportunity waiting for a manufacturer to just take it.
It's just hard because, again, if we had a tinters union, if you will, then we could have a
Oh,
force that says this is the way we do it.
the U word?
Instead, no, it's IWFA. We'll
Okay, but
call it
don't call it the U
whatever.
word. Oh,
Okay, the U word. All right. So some solidarity, we come in and say, look, I mean, when you look at, I can't even think of his name, guy with a weird ponytail. It's awesome.
Gil
Who's the
Guerrero.
guy you have on all the time?
No,
What?
Gil Guerrero was on here
No,
recently. He has a ponytail. I don't know if you were.
no, it's what is it? Tint Revolution or whatever he has. He has stuff
Oh,
on forums.
Rick Tallman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The if we had he, I don't even know where I was going with that now, but
Tint
if we
Shooter.
had some,
Yeah.
yeah, if we had a solidarity or a group that says this is what we expect, and go forward with that to where manufacturers would have to meet a criteria. And maybe that's what the new Tint Club is going. We don't care about brand. We're going to brand ourselves. So I was like, all right, let's see how that works out.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
definitely exciting because there's growth ahead. There is no stagnant in this industry. And if we can get some of the new people to come in and get us old guys new ideas and say, man, this is the way to go forward, it can only grow even better.
yeah, yeah, that's the exciting part of it. That's what draws me to this industry and like has kept me here is like there's all this opportunity. Like you said, it's always changing as an industry on a day to day, everything about it. And it's like you can see like me. I mean, I just don't feel like this exists. And I feel like it's a unicorn in the world of niche industries. This is a unicorn that I feel like lucky enough to have kind of been introduced to.
And I think that's the best thing about all the tinners that we've all met is the uniqueness, but how we're all alike is we go forward and we're like, man, they're still excited after 35 years. I still love what I do. And you see that everywhere. And it's just potential for more growth.
Yeah. And tomorrow, speaking of Rick Tallman, we're going to be doing a Thursday Tint Wisdom for the next, I think, 4 weeks. We're going to have different people from the Window Film Revolution um, moderator groups on here, 3 or 4 at a time. And part of the idea behind it is opening up discussion as to what the new website is, what the forum is, what they're trying to accomplish as a group, and so on. You know, bringing the industry together and so we'll be exploring that tomorrow and the upcoming Thursdays right here. Rob Orange has asked a question that I want to pose to you, which is, does the film brand name matter? What if it was a great film, but you could brand it under your business name, your mom's name, whatever you want? So if a brand, an established brand that you knew right off the bat, this brand's killing it, like they have great film, trust their film, and they said, Vern, do you want us to private label this film for you however you want, whether it be your company's name or a different brand or whatnot? Is that a route you think you'd go? Would that have any appeal?
No, because I quit worrying about brand a long time ago. When I started out, I used to be name brand. Now, when I have customers go, what type of film do you use? I'll flat ask out them, why do you care? And my analogy I give them is everybody knows Budweiser beer. But if you could have a microbrew, who do you think makes a better beer?
Right.
I want a small company that I know mixed it. And when I call them and say, hey, I had this problem, they can go, okay, let me check. That was batch 7. And really, to say I have my own brand, I don't even feel big enough to try to market that and get it out there, because why would I want to say I'm my own Amazon when I could be affiliated with Amazon? So I would say to Rob Orange is, instead of trying to be everybody, make the new Amazon, make me want it bad enough to say that's the film.
Yeah.
That's why I'm standing with Harry so much, because I know his microbrew that he's doing is he has the knowledge. And when he comes out with something new, he's done the research that I haven't had. I don't want the time to do.
Right. I gotcha. I think in the industry outside of window film, Ceramic Pro is a good example of a company just kind of within the same market but different, not window film. Whereas, like, there's a lot of ceramic coating options out there, but in that world, they've thoroughly, established themselves to where I would say, I would never want my own ceramic coating company. I'd rather be established with them, a part of that.
But the only thing they did is, like XPEL, is they marketed themselves. So the difference is they market to the retail customer and make the retail customer brand aware.
Right.
Whereas the other companies market to me, like I tell them, do you want to trust somebody you've never met, or what? Ask me why I use the brand I use.
Right.
Why do I employ it? Because I know exactly what I want that to do. And so you're right, Ceramic Pro is the name, but in that industry, they don't even make it. They just go and say, here's our label and put a bottle on it.
Right.
So
Well, but the point being that a window film manufacturer can can do what Ceramic Pro did in the sense they can bring so much value to the name and brand awareness that why would you want to have your own brand ceramic coating? I would rather be associated with the brand that everybody knows and trusts.
that's what I've done in my own local market.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the the thing is they went out and said, here, we're going to do this, and we don't care about installing it. We just want to know product, and we're really good at marketing and put it out on the market. And you know, XPEL is a perfect example of that. They come in a market and said, we don't nobody cares who makes this crap. We're just going to put our name on it, and then we're going to stand behind it and market it and put it out there. But it's again, they take the time. Me and you, we got to market to every local customer and build our trust in us, where they have taken that away. You know, it's going, well, you know, I want this. And they're smart because they'll go into forums and like XPEL going into the Tesla forums and going, oh, if you have a Tesla, this is what you want. All of a sudden you have Tesla owners calling, well, I want this brand. That's the only one I will do with because other Tesla owners said that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's amazing because it's what we've all tried to do in our own little niche, but they're doing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's who comes to mind when I think of who's currently at this moment number one in the sense like they're moving the fastest, they seem to have the best strategy, they're gaining steam, the snowball that's coming down the mountain and looks like it's going to be the one. To me, Expel stands out, but you know, like you said, things change, things shift, but they've done a really great job coming from. I mean, what would you said about Expel window film 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. You look at who's the alarm Viper. They tried to do their own brand of film,
Yeah.
and it failed.
Right.
You know, but XPEL picks it up and goes, okay, we conquered this market with paint protection. Let's get into film. Okay, nobody questions it, and kudos to them. I mean, it's envious stuff.
It only raises the bar. It's only examples. It's only there's a lot of happy Expel dealers out there doing really well with their business because
Yeah,
Expel.
but it's awesome. Yeah. But you know, XPEL went and said, this is what we're demanding. They didn't take and roll over and go, okay, we'll take whatever product you give us and schlep it out to whoever. They're like, no, this is what it is. And when it comes to branding, obviously they understand it because they're huge.
Yeah, yeah. Thoroughly integrated themselves into the car community where you can have a $5 million like a person who owns a $5 million hypercar and they're gonna if you say how are you protecting your car they're gonna go I need Expel on it. It's that and it could be somebody
Yep.
with a
And what I like
BMW.
about that is why didn't Kodak do that? Why hasn't 3M done that? Why haven't they, you know, because they marketed to you and I and said, here's a bucket of paint instead of marketing to the consumer. I
Yeah,
mean, 3M rested on their laurels and said, you know, we're 3M, we're the best. And they've really fallen down on huge stuff. So you have somebody new coming in going, yep, that's why. And it sucks to be the ones, you know, that say, wait, we put in the time. We should be the respected ones. But it don't fly in today's market.
yeah, yeah. I wonder if like something like for like Expel, as far as I understand, their business is software, is paint protection film, is window tint, is coatings. Whereas, like you go Eastman or Lumar, let's say, well, their business is Eastman, and Eastman has a million divisions, and then you go same with 3M. And I just wonder, like, if that one thing, them being part of that bigger company, if they were to somehow be separated, if that would be the culture change, the opportunity that would let them be as aggressive as Expel, because I just continue to feel like Expel is literally they have a chipping block and they're chipping on Eastman. They're chipping on Lumar. They lose one here, they lose one there, but they're not. Nobody's no. I don't think there's anybody who's going. I'm switching over from Expel to be a Formula One dealer. I don't think it exists, and I'm going. Eastman is full of extremely smart, extremely capable, awesome people, crazy amount of industry knowledge. Nothing bad to say, but I don't see them stepping up and going, we're about to make this next big, huge move.
No, because they rely on their distributors and they rely on, you know, the market. They rely on us users to do that. And it's like, it's cheap marketing for them. Why would they expend more dollars? They don't, they build their presence on one big thing and then they do 7 bazillion others, you know, say,
But they don't even do a good job
say,
marketing to tinters anymore. They have an almost
no,
non-existent
but they never
presence
do
on
market.
social media.
They don't care. They're not a brand that says this is our product. When it's Expel, that's their product, that's their baby, that's what they're going to breathe life into all day long. They don't have 7,000 other products that are going, here's this and here's this. Even though each product has their own marketing team, their own budget, it really is with we're the stepchildren because the manufacturers, the tint is the manufacturers is their stepchild. It's not. Whoever thought it would be something, movie stars and rock stars would say, "Yeah, I got my windows tinted." You know,
Yeah.
Nobody ever did that, so they just said, "Here it is." They make a product and put it out. And then you think about it, like Solar Garden, their parent company. How many do you care that 90% of the wires in your car is made by this company? They don't even care. They're just like, we just produce it. Those guys put it in. We'll just make sure they have the product. We'll be innovative in making the product. We don't get innovative in what they do with it. We don't care. And that's really the old money way of doing it, where you're not the one making it. So if you don't have a factory to run, then you say, okay, let's just go and market this. And they just do marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything that I know you had some things on your mind? Is there anything we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
Nope. I think I talked about it all.
Well,
I talked about Kinner's math, which said, quit lying about how long you dang chin because you're lying. You're only 37 years old. Don't tell me you've been doing it for 20 years. Don't worry about being the best. Let your customers say you're the best and be humbled by it and be embarrassed by that, and learn why you do stuff instead of how you do it, and pay your spouses.
yeah.
My ex-wife would say that would be a great thing because I didn't do it. And
Hey,
so
hey,
learn from
yeah, and you're the best is something you really shouldn't ever be saying about yourself. Like you said, only other people should be saying it about you. It doesn't make sense for it to be something you're saying. So let people do the talking.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Vernon, for doing this tonight, taking the time at the end of your day. And I mean, man, we've only spoken a couple times before. I wasn't expecting. You made this easy in the sense that I agree with you on so many points, and I think I hope there's other ways beyond just me and you doing this again, hopefully sometime soon, to apply this. I hope this can be some sort of step in the right direction, whether it be with Window Film Revolution or IWFA or something else that helps get this sort of wisdom and knowledge out of you and into more people. So,
That'll be ideal.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And like I said a little earlier, we'll be back tomorrow on Thursday with Rick Tallman and a couple other of the Window Film Revolution leadership to talk about what they're doing. So we'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time. And thank you so much.